listeners. Welcome to the second bonus episode in between the end of season 1 and the beginning of season 2. Season 2 is officially going to kick off next Saturday, December 4th, with Mike Harper. We will be live on Twitch, and I'm super excited about it. You will be able to watch us live and see the podcast happening in real time. You'll be able to see us. We'll be on video. You can ask questions and get them answered in real time. I think it's going to be awesome. It may not be. And if it's not, then I won't do it anymore. But, if it's not awesome, it will not be because of the guest, because Mike Harper is just an incredible human being. He's so funny, and he's just such a good guy. So we will see how that goes. But the Twitch channel is twitch.tv/ontheemmispod. You can find it linked in the link in my bio on Instagram. And hopefully, fingers crossed, the new On the MS website will be up by then too. So all of our, all the places you can find us will be there. So this episode is Susanna Eller. She and I have known each other a long time. She came into the Augusta group when I was working there in 1999. And I left in 2001 and moved to Phoenix ultimately in 2002. So she and I, we stayed in touch over the years, but, we weren't working directly together. And we get into a little bit of that in the episode. But she is just, she's been through a lot. She's come a long way. And she's just a good soul. She's just a good person. So this is a really good episode. We get into some really good stuff. And, it was a really heavy one for me because it was one of the first episodes where I interviewed someone who I had a direct impact on. And it's heavy because, as someone who was a staff member, even though we were, abused just as badly as anyone else, we still were complicit in the abuse of young people and a lot of you who are out there listening. And that's really, it's just really heavy. It's heavy for me. It's heavy for other staff members that I know that I talk to. And not that it matters that it was heavy for me. I just, in the spirit of being transparent, this was a heavy episode for me. And I had a good long talk with my therapist afterwards. So, I really think you're going to enjoy Sue. We talk about some really interesting stuff, and it's just a really good episode. Please, if you like the podcast, rate and review us on Apple Podcasts. I really want to, my main goal is to get information out into the, social zeitgeist out into the world about these programs because, one part of my mission is absolutely to support survivors and provide a place where they can come and not feel alone and be able to put words on what they went through. The other half is I want to stop people from ever going to this program ever again so they don't have to unpack 20 years of trauma. So the more people we can get listening to this podcast, the closer we are to, keeping people from ending up in those programs. So please share, please rate and review, tell your friends. If you're not embarrassed to tell your friends that you listen to a podcast about a cult you were in. And if you are, that's fine. There's no shame in that. Not everybody is cool with being open about it. And our Redbubble store is 20% off all t-shirts, hoodies, and phone cases today through Monday as a Black Friday sale. So check that out. All those links are in the bio on my Instagram account. And I'm going to stop talking now and let you listen to Susanna. Hi, Sue. Hi. We just got right into it.
We did.
Everybody, this is Susanna Eller.
Yep.
Is it okay if I call you Susanna Eller?
That is absolutely fine. That's my name. Most people knew me as Sue in
That's
Insights.
True. That's true. That's true. I think I always called you Susanna.
Yeah, I preferred Susanna, but a friend of mine who had lived with me at the end of our kind of drinking and using got the insight first and referred to me as Sue. So when I got there to go into
That's what everyone called you.
outpatient with her, like Sue just kind of stuck.
Yeah, so we go way back.
Way back.
Way back to the early days, 1999.
Oh God.
Isn't that so weird?
It is weird. It is
It was
weird.
22 years ago.
Hmm.
I was 23 years old. I was a baby.
I was 17 when I came
Yeah,
in.
you were also a baby.
Yeah. And it's interesting that our lives have stayed entwined despite at times going 5 years without speaking. Um, it's been a very interesting journey for us, but yes, we do go way back, and we have a history and are still in each other's lives.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, definitely. I mean, at that time, me being 23 years old and having all of these people around me who I felt like I had to act a certain way for, and there were all these expectations. Like you and Anita and Kelly, like y'all were more my friends than necessarily like my quote unquote clients.
Hmm.
Like I know that I tried to keep that boundary there because I knew it could get super unhealthy if I didn't, but it was almost impossible, especially in Augusta at that time. Like the program had only been in Augusta for like a year,
And we were
less than a
small.
year.
Outpatient
Yeah,
had not been going on very long.
yeah, and there weren't really any people that we could like turn things over to. And I remember that being a thing, like because in Atlanta, the group was so well established, and that's where, especially Bruce and Shannon and I, like that's where we worked for a long time and like worked with the group. And so there were all these like, you can't have group members in your car and you can't like go hang out at their houses and all of that kind of stuff in Atlanta because that was, A, crossing a line, and B, it was, there were liability
Hmm.
issues and, that kind of thing. But at Augusta, like we didn't have a choice. And I
Yeah, it's
remember
very different. I often
like
rode in your car.
yeah, oh yeah.
Um,
Pretty
Joe
sure I rode in yours.
Joe drove my car home from a round robin.
Yeah.
Joe was driving my car. None of us had
Oh
slept. It was me.
God.
It was Carrie. Joe was so out of it. I don't know how we made it home, but yes, I came to your apartment a lot. You and I would go
Uh-huh.
separately to dinner,
Uh-huh.
outside of group functions or hours.
Right.
It was very different. There did come
Yeah.
a time where that stopped, though,
Yeah, I'm sure it
and
did. Yeah.
you all of a sudden I wasn't allowed to come to your apartment anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yes, in the beginning, there wasn't a choice.
No. And I remember having that conversation. I think it was with Andy or maybe even Clint, because Clint got involved a little bit there once Andy started to go off the deep end a little bit. But they were like, no, none of that matters in Augusta. Like
Hmm.
you are the steering committee. Like you are going to have to do what steering committee did for you when you got
Hmm.
sober with, these kids. And so we were, I mean, and we were like, sweet, like that was everybody just, especially on staff, like there was a part of you that always just wanted to be in the group again,
Hmm.
like you
Sure.
didn't want to have to be the authority figure. You wanted to go hang out in Waffle House until 5 o'clock in the morning and have like those experiences. And again, it's all like looking back, I see like, especially looking at like the bite model and the which is the Steve Hassan, how
Hmm.
he like the checklist for like, yes, you were in a cult,
Yeah.
and all of that stuff is on that list. Now, I wasn't consciously thinking those things. I wasn't like, we're going to deprive them of sleep in order to further brainwash them,
Right.
like
And
the way it
really,
was.
yeah, for the most part, I don't feel like any of the staff were cognitively aware of what they were doing. It's like I've told you before, it's such an interesting and difficult thing to navigate as a group member because your
Mhm,
your perpetrators are
mhm.
are also victims.
I know.
But I really believe that every single one of them bought into what they were giving us. They probably had all
Mm-hmm.
the same experiences we did as group members of like, something seems very off here.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but you're so inundated at that time and so loved and around such a big group of people, you don't want to lose that essentially.
Yeah.
And you're led
Yeah.
to believe that. So I don't think anyone did anything intentionally, the staff that worked with me.
Yeah.
I think the higher ups did. Like, I think Bob knew what he was doing. I think Clint knows
Mm-hmm.
what he's doing. Like, I think
Mm-hmm.
they do. But again, I think for the most part, my perpetrators were suffering the same thing that I was suffering from them.
Yeah. And it's very weird. It's very weird to be like on that side of it, because I mean, that's a question I ask myself, especially over the past year, a lot, like how much of it was like intentional. Cause I know there were times, there were people in the Augusta group, and you were one of them for sure, to a point, who would challenge me and would challenge my authority. And I remember I would get so angry. Like my reaction would be like, do you even know who I am? Like, how dare you speak to me that way? And I remember at the time, like internally being like, oh God, like I didn't like that. I didn't like that I
Mm-hmm.
had that reaction. And now I can look back and see like that's because of what was built into me,
Mm-hmm.
was ultimately this like, you are superior to these kids, and you've got to keep them under control,
Mm-hmm.
um, because, and it's so weird, but, um, I remember, like you're constantly getting asked, like it would start with the director. So like Andy would go to Bruce and be like, what's going on with your group? And if somebody was getting high or somebody had relapsed, or if a newcomer came to a meeting and they didn't stick around, it was always like, what did you do wrong? What could you have done better? Like, why didn't you keep them around?
Mm-hmm.
And then Bruce would bring that back to me and Shannon,
Mm-hmm.
and then it would be like, we had to figure out what our part was in whatever. And I think that's what kind of created that feeling in all of us of like, we have to control these kids. And if we can't, we are doing something wrong.
Sure. And
And then how that
yeah.
comes off to you guys is like, then we put it on you,
Mm-hmm.
then we went to you and went like, so and so got high at your house last night. What happened? Where were you?
I don't know. I was gaming and trying to sleep with every attractive boy there.
Right. Right. And then it's like, ultimately, it's like I would almost feel better
Mm-hmm.
being like, oh, well, Sue was off with, Andy,
But we
and
figured
that's
it out.
why. Yeah.
Sue
Yeah.
was.
It's Sue's fault.
Do you remember? Do you remember the "Don't Milton Bradley out on me" for gaming?
No.
So awful. It'd be like Susanna was just Milton Bradley over there with her games.
Was that from Bruce?
I can't.
Bruce came up. He came up with the
I
worst,
can't.
like,
I can't
things like
remember.
that.
So terrible.
Milton Bradley.
But the thing of it is, and I don't think it's just particular to Insight and Pathway and Enthusiastic
Right.
Sobriety.
Right.
It's the same with all groups. There's a hierarchy. There's a tier.
Yeah.
There is
Yeah.
a power tier.
Yeah.
And if you're smart, which I think some people in the group really invested and some didn't, but I noticed right away, one, because I'm 17, I'm desperate,
Mm-hmm.
I'm hurting.
Mm-hmm.
I ended up in this group. Essentially, it was the only family I really had. I went against some of my better judgments, but I knew the quicker I move up in this power pyramid here, the more love and acceptance I will get.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You can tune into that pretty easily because there is a
Yeah.
steering, and then there's staff, and it kind of goes down that way. So I was always cognizant and as a human being, of course we like power. Does it appeal
Yeah.
to our better nature? No, not
Right.
necessarily. But is it appealing? Absolutely.
Yeah.
So even though you may have a feeling of like this doesn't feel good inside of me, there is something about superiority that does feel good. And the group is set up to
Yeah.
move up in rank with your superiority. The more
Yeah.
women you sponsor, the longer you're on steering, the longer you have a healthy relationship. Do you go to counselor training? How
Right.
often do you talk to the counselors? I mean, there
Mm-hmm.
is really unspoken
Yeah.
rules and milestones that if you hit, you feel more secure in the fact that you are loved and wanted.
Yeah.
It's very unfortunate, but
Yeah.
I was very aware of it. And then I carried it into AA and
Right.
acted the same way
Yeah.
because that's
Me
how,
too.
but of course, yeah, of course, a piece of us, but it's difficult, to still at this age with all this time past, try to figure out which part of me is this.
Totally. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I didn't put
No,
it there and I didn't ask for it. Some
right.
assholes, inadvertently inundated me over time at an extremely developmental age in my brain and cognitive thinking of 17 to 21. And it was every day. It's not
Yeah.
like you got like occasionally inundated. It's like
Yeah.
you were at the satellite, shout out to old school satellite. um,
Yep.
you were at a meeting, you were at coffee, you were at a function. If you had a
Yeah.
boyfriend, your date nights were, I don't know, Wednesday and something, Wednesday and
Wednesday
Sunday,
and Sunday. Yep.
Wednesday and Sunday, because that's when you didn't have, I mean, it was a constant every
Yeah.
day over 3.5 years.
Yep.
It's a long time
Yeah.
to
Yeah. It's
hear
a
those
lot.
messages over and over and over and over and over and over again.
Yep. Yeah. You just made me think of something when you were talking about that. Oh, well, it'll come back to me. But yes, I totally get everything you're saying. And it, I was thinking about how, because at some point you were like, I think every one of us was thinking something's off. And I was like, I don't think I ever thought that. like, but I remembered, and this is so weird. I hadn't thought about this in so long, but when I was like brand new, like in
Mm-hmm.
outpatient, I remember my outpatient counselor was very like, she was like, don't like ask questions and don't just accept people telling you what to do. And,
Mm-hmm.
and I think we had just had a day in group about like sticking with winners and like not going to old playgrounds and
Mm-hmm.
that whole thing. And then over the weekend, like after a function, the whole group went to Fellini's downtown, which was like a place I used to hang out
Mm-hmm.
and drink and get high and whatever. And so we got there and I was like, why are we here? Like, this is like I knew where people were dealing drugs on the
Mm-hmm.
corner. Like, it's not, you know what I mean? Like, it's downtown Atlanta, which in reality is like fine, like whatever. But for where I was and everything I was learning, and I really wanted to get better, I was like, why are you bringing a bunch of recovering drug addicts here? Like, this seems weird to me. And I was talking to people about it, like talking to steering
Mm-hmm.
committee and like, what the fuck? Um and they were all like, it's fine, it's fine, it's fine. And I was like, no, it's not. And I want to leave. And so I got this whole crew of people to leave with me and like go to a
Oh,
Denny's.
okay.
Yeah. And so at some point, the rest of the group showed up at this Denny's, and all of steering committee, and there were like probably 6 people on steering committee at that point, were like pulled me aside and just like went off on me
Mm-hmm.
about how fucked up it was and who did I think I was. And I remember for the first 3 people, I was like, I think I'm a person who's trying to get sober and doesn't want to go somewhere where they used to get high. Why do you have a problem with that? Like, why am I in trouble right now? And it was the first time that I felt that, like I had been love bomb, love bomb, love bomb. And
Mhm.
now all of a sudden I was having these conversations where people were like obviously unhappy with me. And it was like, I thought I was doing what I was supposed to do here. And by the end of the night, I was in tears. I was just, like
Mhm.
sobbing and like, I mean, because it was like,
Right,
leave me
you're
alone.
at your lowest low.
Yeah. I was at my lowest low, and literally six people pulled me aside to tell
Mhm.
me what a fucking bitch I was being. And I hadn't thought about that in a long time, but like that was probably the first time I got fully like crushed
Mhm.
by the boot of, our way or the highway. Like, if you keep doing this, we're not going to love you anymore,
Yeah.
and the like, this is self will. This is going to get you high. You were at Fellini's with a group of safe people. It shouldn't have been an issue, like all of that stuff. And so it was the first time that I didn't trust myself.
Mhm.
Like, I was like, oh, all of these people are saying what I just did was wrong. And I thought it was the right thing to do. So I must be wrong.
Mhm.
And it was the first time that that happened. And there were a couple times that I raised hell like that after that. But eventually I stopped, and I hadn't thought about that in so long. Like,
'Cause
what a
you're
little,
gonna lose, you know?
right, right. Yeah.
And,
Um,
I think, with the program, not only are we told not to trust ourselves, we hear from the beginning, like, your best thinking got you here. And then it is a very rigorous, like, if you're just in a casual conversation with your sponsor or counselor and you say something to you that's just very casual, you haven't spent a lot of time on it. And then they say, well, why
mhm,
haven't you been honest about that? And you have no idea that
mhm,
you've been dishonest. So then it
mhm.
starts this cycle of like every
Yeah.
thought, if not shared, is a dishonesty. And
Yeah.
every thought is then analyzed and judged as healthy or unhealthy.
Right.
And if you want to get as close to the counselors as you can get, you're going to talk to them a lot. You're going to get
Mhm.
analyzed a lot. You're going to get judged a lot. And again, for other recovery programs, my experience in Alcoholics Anonymous, which was a beautiful kind of bittersweet experience, but you're also told your best thinking got you here. But
Yeah.
even after you've been there for 20 years, you're still told you you can't trust yourself. You need to
Yeah.
run things by people. Your best thinking got you here. And it's like, well, who allows for growth? Like,
Right.
am I just destined to never be able to think for myself and
Yeah.
make good decisions, even with all this practiced recovery?
Yep.
Because if that isn't happening, well, what am I doing here?
Right. Yep.
And I think when you go so long with being told essentially, don't trust yourself because you're naturally self-centered
Yeah.
and awful, it can do some long-term, damage. But I was often, my experience in the group, I went through outpatient. Uh, I dated a gentleman. The counselors told him to break up with me,
A gentleman. Did
and
we tell him to break up with you?
they
Why did
did.
we
Of
tell him to
course,
break
the
up with
counselors
you?
always tell you like when it's time to
Wait,
break up.
was I involved in this in telling him to break up with you?
I don't know. I don't know really. But then, I suffered days of wanting essentially not to drink or use again, but to not exist anymore.
Oh, sure. Same here.
And it's shocking to me that the counselors who are supposed to be trained in mental and emotional health did not at any time think this is a very drastic reaction.
Mhm.
It was all, well, you're not close to God, or you're not. There
Mhm.
was no overall picture of like, this reaction isn't matching the situation. Is there
Right.
more we need to delve into here? And,
Right.
one friend in particular, we were not winners. We fought that tooth and nail for a long time. And then eventually did completely split. And then I dated another, do I call him a gentleman? I'm not. I'm not so sure what name to put on that. But the unfortunate situation there is that there had been many situations in which this particular person had been very aggressive towards me. Had put my dog in the microwave and turned it on. Had ripped my door handle off of my car, off of it completely during whatever that game is where you have
the assassination game.
The assassination game, which I was the first girl that won in Augusta.
Yeah, that particular assassination game got way out of control.
It was ridiculous.
And Joe and I did not help at all.
No, you were awful. And then this same person really literally took his car and bumped it into my car and pushed me onto the road.
Right. And do you also remember there was someone who in your neighborhood thought they were running into your house and they ran into a stranger's house? Yes, I will never forget that. It scared the living shit out of him. I think he called Joe and was like, I'm in somebody's house. I can hear them breathing. Like, because it was like 2 a.m. and I guess their front door was unlocked and he thought he was running into your house, threw the door up and ran in and then looked around and was like, this is not Sue's house, and froze and called Joe.
What an
like,
idiot.
I'm
Run
in
out,
someone's
dude.
house. Well, and Joe was like, get out of there. Like, that's breaking and entering. Like, get out of the house. But I just remember how shaken he was about it. Like, he felt horrible. And I think was just so like, I just remember seeing his face after it. And he was someone, I'm not going to say his name. I'll tell you later.
Sure.
But he was someone that was very stoic and like always kind of acted like he didn't really have emotions and deflected everything with humor. And like, he was a good guy, but like, you never really saw him like knocked off his axis. And I remember walking up to him and he was pale and like visibly fucked up, and I remember being like, oh my God, like, are you okay? Like, and at no point were Joe and I like, we should probably rein this in. Like,
No.
it was just like, well, that was bad. Moving on to,
the next
Joe
bad
and I,
thing. The next.
Well, and do you remember the person that Joe had? We went over to his house and he was up on his roof.
Yeah, I do remember
of his
this.
like 2-story house.
This is stupid. This is ridiculous.
Trying to hide from Joe. I mean, it.
And then Carrie was my best friend, so I had an alliance with Carrie. A pretty strong one.
That's right.
But eventually, as I knocked everyone down, I had Carrie's name.
Right. You two had each other, didn't you?
And I killed him. I shot him.
I know you did.
And
you were ruthless.
He went
nuts.
Ape shit.
Oh,
he
that's
felt
right.
So betrayed. I mean, this thing just got totally out of hand. This same guy that like ripped my door handle off and put my animals, in the microwave, flicked a lit cigarette butt in my face.
Right.
And the thing of it is, then the counselors encouraged him to ask me on a date, however long after that.
Right.
And there's just a disconnect.
Yeah.
Of, well, maybe this might not be such a good idea, and that it's laughed off. Like, dude, you can't put dogs in the microwave. Like, dude, you should probably like maybe pay for a door handle. But it was laughed about. There was never any like, hey, did you consider that you scared the shit out of her and everybody in that car? Did you consider as you were pushing them onto the road and chasing them down the road that they were scared shitless?
Yeah.
And that's not okay to do to other people. It wasn't that. It wasn't the nature of what really happens in that type of behavior. It was just like, dude, that's fucked up.
Yeah.
And there's something amiss of like, why does this girl want to be in a relationship with this guy?
Right.
Maybe we should talk to her about that, but it wasn't. It was encouraged. It's very strange, but you don't notice these things.
Right, because you're so immersed in it. Yeah.
You don't notice them at all.
Yeah.
whatsoever. And I did, I was very close to the counselors. At one time, I sponsored everyone in Augusta.
Right.
And I was told, like, there's nobody here that can sponsor you, so you need to get a sponsor in Atlanta. And I got a
Right.
sponsor in Atlanta. So they were setting me up on a superiority scale. And then I was on steering, and then I volunteered working at the satellite.
Who did you get in Atlanta? Who was your sponsor?
I don't remember her name. I think it was Jessica. She was so cute. She was kind of short. She had long blonde hair.
Yeah.
She had less time than me, which doesn't matter. Anyway, so I had her for a little bit.
Yeah. I know who you're talking about.
Yes. That might have been, I mean, I don't remember who I had, but they set me up. I really think is they knew how much I wanted to be a counselor.
Mm-hmm.
And they knew anything they asked me to do that would get me close to that, I was going to do.
Mm-hmm.
But essentially, I did not go to counselor training, and I graduated.
Thank God.
And, I remember our graduation. I still have the tape somewhere in this house.
Ooh.
But I couldn't even speak. I was in fight or flight so bad, with tears, a choked voice, like I was petrified to leave the group.
Yeah.
And in AA, I mean, you think you know so much, right? Because I was in the longest time, sponsored the most women, this, that. And then you end up in AA and people are looking at you like, that's not really the 12 steps.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's not love and tolerance.
Yeah.
Like that's not, and I will tell you, like my first 6 months out of the program, my head was so mentally screwed up.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I've got to be institutionalized or something. I don't even know what's going on in my brain right now. It was like a complete undoing.
Mm-hmm.
And then I kind of just managed to get a little better. And then in 2005, I saw the news from the Arizona, and then I saw they went to Atlanta, and it was Shannon. It was my outpatient counselor that opened the door and said no comment. And she just kept saying no comment. And in that video, and this isn't against Shannon, but she looked guilty. She looked foolish. Like anytime you have to continue to say no comment over and over and over, you say it once, you shut the door.
Right. I remember thinking that myself, being like, Shannon, just shut the door.
Right. But she couldn't. And I thought it was very difficult to see the woman who had done my outpatient that I credited essentially for saving my life, and then see her on the news in that state and just know deep down that I always knew this.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I just kind of shut it off and just really stayed away in AA from like anyone in the group, and didn't delve into, I just wouldn't talk about the group. I just wouldn't do it.
Yeah. Yeah. And somewhere in there, well, no, it would have been much farther along the line. But I remember when I was going to Macon for the whatever, you and I ran into each other in Macon.
We did.
Do you
remember
remember that?
The service assembly. But even after I graduated, I will say I contacted you twice, in which we did talk.
Yeah, we did talk a few times.
With some really difficult times for me. And then we ran, into each other in Macon, which was awesome. I hadn't seen you in like 12 years.
Mm-hmm.
And you were not in the program anymore. And I think you and I spent like an hour and a half in the lobby, and you kind of told me some of the things that had gone on in the program, but you were still, you were not where I was with the program.
Right. Yeah.
And at that point in time, I was just really angry and like, I don't want to be affiliated with it.
Mm-hmm.
That place was really, really messed up. I don't even like seeing people who were in that program. Like it does a whole thing to my stomach. I didn't really hug newcomers in AA. Like I always went to shake their hand. Out of respect of like, I don't know if this person wants me touching them.
Right.
And there was just something that was pretty uncomfortable for me about it. So, I would always introduce myself to a newcomer and shake their hand.
Mm-hmm.
So it had, definitely little effects on me. When I told my story behind the podium, I would not talk about the group at all.
Mm-hmm.
I would just cut it out. Like I got sober, I went through outpatient, and then, I would jump
Right.
into AA.
Yeah.
And it really wasn't until, really about a year ago when things got kicked up again. Like I didn't watch the group documentary when it came out. Like I couldn't do it. I didn't want to admit like this is what went on.
Yeah. I know.
And I
Same for
didn't
me.
want to admit I still use these techniques.
Mm-hmm.
I still use this vulnerability manipulation with other people. I still use these techniques. I still analyze people's thoughts or their emotions and tell them if they're healthy or unhealthy. It was how I got sober for
Mm-hmm.
3.5 years. And I didn't want
Mm-hmm.
to look at that either. Had I
Yeah.
done any of it intentionally? No, but to admit that it had this lasting effect on how I performed in Alcoholics Anonymous and the possibility that I could have used these damaging techniques on some of the people I worked with was a horrible thought. And no one wants
Yeah.
to admit that something that happens to you or that you experience at that age, that it's still affecting you 20 years down the road.
Right.
No one wants to. But
Yeah.
about
No,
a
that.
year ago, I took a look and they were being a lot more vocal in social media about the long-term effects.
Yeah.
And more people were talking about what they experienced in the group. And I was able to start to relate and take a look at kind of the truth of it.
Yeah. Yeah. It was so like, for me, it was so like piecemeal. Like it's so interesting since the survivors group on Facebook, like when I joined that and started like hearing how other people described it and how other people described their experience, like I thought I had, like unpacked it all,
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
but
right.
I had not,
Right.
like I had never called what happened to me abuse
Right.
until that, and so that, this past year has really been for me so much of like me thinking about that process for me, like
Mm-hmm.
especially because of the podcast, because I'm interviewing people as they're talking about like how they got from being someone who, was either on staff or was in the group and like super like a recruiter,
Mm-hmm.
for the group and to where they are now, where they're speaking out on a podcast about the horrors that they experienced. And it's really got me like thinking about like that process for me because it was like a fog being lifted over a period of 15 years,
Yeah.
like it's just, I mean, there's still stuff today, like what just happened when we were talking, when I was like, oh my God, I actually was like very not into the group when I first got in the
Mm-hmm.
group. And I hadn't thought about that ever. I hadn't thought about that situation in 20 years,
Mm-hmm.
because the way that I started to tell that story in the group was listen to what a bitch I was when I first got here. That's
Exactly.
how fucked up I
And that's
was.
probably like the closest you really were to your true
Yeah.
self.
Yeah.
And then, it's
Yeah.
gone in
That was
that
like
instant.
the last time that I was truly myself.
Mm-hmm.
And coming back to that, it's so hard, like for me, finding that balance because, today and I, I, I think there's a part of me that was like, I'm going to do exactly the opposite of what I did when I was there because I never want to have that happen to me again,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And I'm sure there's a balance.
Yeah,
You know
right.
what I mean?
Between the
Um,
extremes.
but I have not found it, and I honestly kind of don't care if I ever do. But I'm pretty like I don't do the like fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me. I just
Mm-hmm.
stop at fool me once. Like
Yeah.
if someone does something to me that's like mean or like manipulative or whatever, I'm like, we're done. I
Well,
don't have time.
you know,
Like,
the thing of it
I
is,
just,
until you do what you did, and over those years while the fog is lifting, you continue to wind up and emotionally and
yeah.
psychologically controlling relationships.
Yep.
And that can be with a
Yeah.
sponsor, that could be romantically, that could be, a parent relationship within your family. It could be, people you sponsor. But you don't know that it's a control situation, because essentially what was done in Insight was like, a water torture of a slow
Yeah.
drip
Yeah.
over time, so you don't notice, and you just accept that your thoughts being analyzed, your behaviors being analyzed, you being told what's healthy, what's not healthy, you being told not to trust yourself, this is how you do it. You repetitively find yourself in these relationships.
Yep.
And I think that is very sad,
Mm-hmm.
because I didn't
Yeah.
know that that's what was happening.
Yeah.
So I think that is sad. And today, even when I have like really difficult times and I'm feeling either really confused about something or really emotional, like my first thought is somebody has to tell me I'm okay.
Yeah.
And then I'm trying to think of who I can call and run every single detail of this through them. And they can say, you're okay or you're not okay.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why do I, as a 40-year-old successful woman, feel the need that I cannot process this on my own and someone has to tell me I'm okay? And I know what
Right.
that's from.
Yeah.
Or why do I feel like I shouldn't be alone? That I should have this massive, large
Yeah.
support system all of
Yeah.
the time. And it's because I did for 3.5 years. Like,
Yeah.
being alone was not promoted. There was no self-care. There was no figure out who you are.
Those words were said.
But they were not. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
but there was no actual like way to do any of that.
yeah, it's unfortunate. It's like, still feeling that panic inside me, and this, I need to be approved by a higher up, or I
Mm-hmm.
need a group of people to approve of me before I
Mm-hmm.
can feel okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't ask for that either. And again,
Yeah.
I don't think the counselors know that they were creating that for so many people, but whether you knew it or not, you did. You
Yeah.
did create it.
Yeah.
Um, and when you hit them at a developmental age like that and they stay for so long, they don't really stand much of a chance of being able to pull out of that on their own, especially since you motherfuckers will never say, like, hey, this was wrong.
Yeah.
Some people
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
But those are effects I still feel today.
Yeah. Totally. And while you were talking, I was thinking about um like when you were talking about the, like, why do I still need people to tell me I'm
Mm-hmm.
okay thing? And I'm like, it's, do it. Like, who cares? Like, like if you need someone to tell you you're okay, you're welcome to call me and I will just tell you you're
Yeah,
okay.
it's like a desperate thing, though. It
Yeah,
feels
I know.
different. It's like this crazy desperation,
Yeah.
and is how you felt in the group a lot. And I was actually just doing some writing this morning, and in the group, the higher you get, like when you get to steering, when you're close to counselors, you are under the gun all the time. I think that was the worst part of my group experience, is I would
Yeah.
feel like I'm good, I'm okay, I'm happy, and then I would get the confrontation of
Yes.
like, you're
Yes.
really fucked
Same
up, and
here.
here's why.
Right.
And this was really my life for the last 2 years of the group. It was essentially this fight or flight every
Yep.
day, every
Yep.
day. And
Yep.
if you did come to them with something that you knew was wrong, it wasn't like a glazed over, like, okay, this is wrong, but it's not so bad. It was like, yes, this is wrong, and I'm going to take you to the bottom with
Yep.
it.
Yep.
And then once I get you to the bottom, and you feel like you're dying, I'm going to say, I love you so much.
Right. Right.
Here's the solution. And they're going to pull you back up from that bottom.
Yep.
And
That's
then
absolute gaslighting. Yep.
this is your life for essentially 2 years. And this is a life I repeated well after the group for a very long time. And
Yeah.
I still go through those emotions often of this
Mm-hmm.
fight or flight, of this, oh my
Mm-hmm.
God, I feel bad. And I take it all the way down. I
Yeah,
don't have to do that.
I know. I know.
But now I have to learn how not to do that
Yeah.
because other people told me that was the only way. Let's go way, 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 way down. And then I'm going to
Yeah.
pull you out.
Yep.
Um, and like I said, the higher up you get, a lot of people didn't have that experience. They had a great time in the group. But when you work like I did, to
Yeah.
be the most liked, to be the most loved, to be the closest to the counselors, to get to training, you take the heat a
Yep.
lot. And it's
Yeah.
so unstable. It's awful.
Yeah. It is awful. And yeah, I have this friend. So you just got me thinking about this. I have this friend, and she is like my favorite fucking person. I love her so much. And she is just open about all that stuff. Like she is like, for instance, she and I are in this group chat, right?
Mm-hmm.
Group text. And there are just three of us. It's not like there's a ton of us, but it's her um and this other girl, woman, and me. And um the other woman and I were both kind of separately really close with her. And then she was like, I'm just texting both of you the same thing every day. So I'm putting us all in a group chat. So I only have to text it once. Right. Because
Sure.
we were like the two people that she was texting, like pretty much we all text each other pretty much all day throughout the day. Right. And me and the other woman knew each other, but not we weren't as close as we were with the main woman. And so now we are. So the three
Mm-hmm.
of us are in this text, this group text, and are constantly texting all day about each other's lives. And every now and then, uh like at night, because she goes to bed early, the main
Mm-hmm.
woman. And so me and the other woman will text privately because we don't want to, we don't want her uh notifications going off all night,
Mm-hmm.
right? Um so uh and then, the next day one of us will talk about something we texted to each other. Me and the
Mm-hmm.
other girl will talk about, like, oh yeah, last night. And the main friend will be like, wait, you were talking without me? Like, what were you talking about? I'm jealous. Are you two getting closer than and it's hilarious.
Mm-hmm.
And that is me. Like, I am fully like that. Like, I want my friends to be only my friends. I don't want them to have other friends. I get jealous if they go hang out with other friends. And that was something I was always told was like so fucked up about me, and like was part of my disease and a defective
Mm-hmm.
character, and I had to give it to God, and was always looked down upon. And it spoke to how truly sick I was, because I was always told I was sicker than others, and that kind of bullshit. And the fact that she just says it all out loud, I've just been like, first of all, that's normal. Like, people get like that, and it's okay. Like, when you really care about someone and love someone, and you have this relationship that you really cherish, and you imagine that person having that with somebody else, like, yeah, you're going to get jealous, and yeah, you're going to be like, no, like mine. And I know that not everybody is like that, but it also, if you are like that, it also doesn't mean you are a sick human being with a terminal illness that's going to kill you. And like all of the shit that I was just told
Yeah,
about every little
everything
thing.
is
Yeah.
terminal, and then
Yeah.
with my first breakup, well, one, this idea of dating people in a small group like Augusta and then breaking up and then seeing each other the next day and every day thereafter
Right. And all your friends are mutual friends.
is ridiculous. And with my first breakup, my best friend started hanging out with my ex-boyfriend alone all the time.
Right.
And at functions, they would have one-on-ones like all the time.
Right.
Yes, as a human being, that drove me crazy.
Yep.
And of course it would.
Yep.
But then the counselors step in and they facilitate these two people talking more.
Right.
And explain to me that I'm not okay with myself.
Right.
And there was always such this like deep, drastic, and it's really like, oh no, this is a normal human emotion of jealousy. And guess what? You're in a super weird situation because you're in a relationship with this guy for a year and a half and y'all broke up. And now he's hanging out with your best friend all the time in front of your face. It's
I'm
really
so
weird.
Sorry. I'm just going to keep saying
like,
I'm sorry.
Like nobody said, like, man, I understand why you feel that way. It wasn't like maybe they shouldn't be doing that. It was like, man, Sue, you are really messed up.
Like, this is your shit. Yeah.
And so now, like, I have a really hard time when my therapist will say, that's pretty normal human emotion.
Yeah.
I'm like, wow, they took everything.
Yeah. I know.
Everything.
Yeah.
You know, and like I said, then I took that into AA. I found the group of women that had the longest time sober that seemed to have this really big connection.
Mm-hmm.
And I went for those women. I got to get in with those women.
Mm-hmm.
I got to do the most service work. I got to sponsor a lot of women. Whatever I can do to stand out here is going to give me more love, more attention. It's going to give me more security. It's going to solidify my worth.
Well, that, and it's going to get me farther and farther away from, imminent death.
Right.
I mean, that's ultimately, both AA and pretty much any 12-step program, that's kind of the baseline is you're going to die. Yeah. Like, and it's just ridiculous. And that's what keeps people around.
Yeah.
That's what made it so hard for me when I hit the point when I had, almost 20 years sober of being like, I don't think I'm an alcoholic. Like, that was so hard to work through because it was like, either I'm not an alcoholic or this is my disease that wants me dead, telling me
out there, Jack.
I'm not an alcoholic.
While you're in a meeting.
Yeah. Yep. And I'm going to die. Like, like, it's terrifying. And I'm so excited. The therapist that I worked through all of that stuff with, she's going to come on the podcast. I'm going to interview her. And I'm so excited because God, that woman she just changed my life, and she helped me through all of that. And
therapy is so implemental and necessary.
Yeah.
Anyone
it really
who
is.
has spent a significant amount of time in the group, that it does have a trauma effect, a trigger effect. Like, I don't like groups today. Like, I have like my own kind of stuff kind of going on, in which maybe some support groups would be helpful. But I think about walking into a group and like my body freezes. One, because of my experience with groups, and two, because any group I join, I look for the person who's respected the most.
Yeah.
And then I begin to imitate that person.
Yeah.
Because that's what I was taught to do.
Right. Right.
And I'm not saying that groups aren't helpful. They are.
Right. Right.
But it's a trigger for me now.
Yep.
And I can't walk into a group. And like I said, I'm kind of way down the road here from when I left the program.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, I still, finding out I was autistic was very helpful because that explains a lot. Cause I didn't like being in groups of people when I was in the group. I hated it. And I was constantly like, I look back now and realize I was having panic attacks. I was having full-blown panic attacks. And I remember this one night, it was like after a staff purpose, and after staff purposes, at least in Phoenix, we would all go over to the director's house. And I remember this night. So first, I mean, think about this. I'm around people all day, and I'm in this position where this is when I was working at Step 2. So I was like the boss or whatever, and the house mom, and the one who's responsible for providing a safe place for 10 teenagers, that are bonkers because they've been, shipped to this city where they know no one, and they're, coming off of medication and drugs and all kinds of stuff. So I'm sucked. The life is sucked out of me during the day, and then I have to go sit in this group of people and like hope I don't get confronted in the staff
Right. And
purpose.
it's
And
overstimulated. I remember you've talked about this story and you just totally you couldn't do it.
yeah.
But the other women left the room
Oh, I already told this story.
and
Yeah.
then said like you were just putting this energy out that was
Yes.
just we couldn't bear it.
Yeah. I pushed them out of the room,
Right. And it's
and I
like,
look back at, I was having a panic
well,
attack.
also it's very overstimulating to have to
Right.
do what you do in the house. There's no mental health in this
Yeah.
program.
Yeah.
There's
None.
no
None.
assessment of the reality of the amount of work and stress that are on not only the counselors but also the group members.
Yeah.
It doesn't exist. It's this weird spiritual energy, and so many people, who need treatment don't get it. And so many people who leave the group,
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
so glad that they connect, via the survivor stuff. But you go through something like that, you better get your ass in therapy
Yeah.
of some sort
Yeah.
and find someone who's on the other side of it a little bit. Don't
Yeah.
just complain, don't just relive the trauma, but find someone who will talk about the anxiety, who will talk about the long lasting thought patterns, and who will talk about how they're recovering from it.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, for sure.
and you and I, like I said, have such a strange, we've always stayed in touch. And I got probably the best of you, in my
Mm-hmm.
opinion. I don't know what other people got. But in Augusta, we were so early.
Mm-hmm.
But you you were the one who said, like, you realize this dude ripped the door handle off of your car.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
And when I went through that first relationship and the breakup happened, the gentleman who broke up with me, he relapsed.
Mm-hmm.
And he was super mean to me. And
Mm-hmm.
it came down to like, you got to go, this guy had to go to Atlanta and go back through outpatient.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like the night he was leaving, and he had been so mean to me. I couldn't stand the thought of me not telling him bye. And
Mm-hmm.
of course, he wasn't going to tell me bye. So,
Right.
of course, I ran after him and told him bye.
Mm-hmm.
And I talked to you about it the next day. You had told me it wasn't a good idea, but when I told you I had done it, you didn't like chastise me. You just kind of looked at me and you kind of said, if you were watching the situation and someone had treated your girlfriend that badly, would
Mm-hmm.
you tell her to chase him, to tell him bye?
Mm-hmm.
And I realized you were trying to say, have a little bit of self-worth here, Sue.
Mm-hmm.
You were willing to say, like, as a woman, you're a person and you need to protect yourself and
Mm-hmm.
look at these things.
Yeah.
When I called you after graduation and you just said, you let yourself be the scapegoat a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And I couldn't hear that then, but boy, I heard it years later.
Yeah.
You gave me some slack, and I don't know why, because I don't think you gave yourself that.
Mm-hmm.
But there were several times that you made it well known, like you're setting yourself up in this way, and you need to know that you can have esteem, and let me try to show you how.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know why that happened or why that.
Well, did the was that when Joe was there? Did all that happen when Joe was there?
I think it did. Yeah, I think it
Yeah,
did.
because Joe, so I had been so, Andy, I mean, just in general, starting with that situation with Fellini's Pizza, I had just been, broken down and broken down and broken down and
Mhm.
broken down. And then Andy, especially, I mean, he was horrible to me. I mean, good God. And then I moved to Augusta, and that in of itself was great for me because I wasn't constantly under Andy's scrutiny. Now Bruce was kind of an Andy Jr. at that time. But he wasn't as bad as Andy. And I could fight with Bruce. Like, Bruce wasn't the director. I mean, Bruce and I fought a lot. Like, I got into it with Bruce many times because he was so fucking condescending and it would drive me nuts. And Joe got there and I was such a mess. Like, I was so like, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said that, you know. And he was like, oh my God, stop. And he was like, you are amazing. Like, Joe just completely like built me up and was like, I don't know why you feel like you have to be this like be yourself. Like, who you are is incredible and you're a good person and you care about people. And like, he just really kind of cracked me open. And uh that was the first time I felt completely comfortable being myself, you know? And like, who I really am as a person is like, I really genuinely give a shit about people, you know? And I
Yeah,
like
and
really
education wasn't a big deal in the group. People left all the time.
that's an understatement.
They went to Polestar, whatever, but I went through
Right.
outpatient and I went to summer school and graduated high school. And I
That's right.
graduated on time and my degree came in the mail, and it was a sad day for me because I didn't walk the stage. And I
Right.
went to the satellite and I saw you and I showed you my diploma. And I think I actually sat in your lap and you were like, this is a really, really big deal.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
And you were it. That was the only person. And of course,
Really?
no one else could congratulate me because they knew they weren't going to fucking graduate.
Yeah.
They just
Yeah.
wanted, to not go to school. But,
Yeah.
I'm fortunate. I have a high school, diploma, and it was probably, it's strange when we connect because it was around May. And I had done, and Lauren actually talked about it. It's eye movement desensitization
Yeah.
reprocessing.
EMDR. Yeah.
And had dealt with just some major, major, major traumas. And I was kind of sort of getting on the other side of it. And as I continued to clear out these traumas, like I would get more and more in touch and remember more and more things and see them from a different perspective. I mean, that's what it is. It's reprocessing. And I
Mm-hmm.
woke up one day and I thought, I'm not an alcoholic. It was
Mm-hmm.
as clear as day in
Wow.
my gut. And I
Yeah.
thought, yeah, I didn't hear that.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's terrifying.
No, that's
Yeah.
impossible. You don't
Yeah.
spend 22
Yeah.
22 years of your life. All of my worth was based in AA, all
Yeah.
of it. I
Yeah.
was like, no, definitely an alcoholic. But then I couldn't stop like the flow of like, really, you had so much unidentified, undealt with trauma.
Yeah.
Um, Not to mention in the 22 years I was in the program and worked so hard in AA, I went through pretty much the same flux, 3 months of being okay. And then I would hit deep depressions, really deep
Mm-hmm.
depressions.
Mm-hmm.
And it went this way. I mean, a sponsor
Yeah.
watched it go this way for over 12 years. I never found total peace and contentment in AA.
Yeah. Me either.
I looked like I was, on fire. I worked
Yeah.
really hard for people to look up to me.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I accomplished that. And people didn't know about those low lows. And behind the podium, I was spectacular.
Mm-hmm.
One, I'm a public speaker. I
Mm-hmm.
do that anyway. It comes very easy to me. Two, I have no problem speaking vulnerably from the heart in front of a lot of people.
Yep.
But there were people that saw this and never once did they say, like, hey, something's going on.
Mm-hmm.
This has been going on for over a decade now.
Mm-hmm.
it was, you're not giving enough. You're self-centered. You're this, you're that.
Yeah. Oh, self-centered.
And
Yeah.
not to say that they did not suggest like, hey, you got to get outside help. They did. Thank you. They did.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it's okay to be on medicine. You might actually benefit from it. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for that. But you were never able to say, maybe this has nothing to do with self-centeredness. Maybe this has nothing to do with giving to other people. Because when it was like, you need to give more, it's like, what else do you want me to do?
Yeah. Like, how much more do I have to give?
I'm doing everything, and I've done everything. So when I woke up this day, I was like, oh God. But it was clear, like once you know something, and I was petrified because all of my friends were in AA, long-term relationships. I was sponsoring 3 women. All the stuff started posting about the group. And then I just clear as day remembered my first day in outpatient. How long have you been drinking and using? And I told my story, and it was really like a little over a year and a half. And it was like, well, when did you first have a drink? Said I first had a drink at 12. I tried it for the first time. Okay, well then you've been drinking from 12 to 17, and you've been in your disease for 5 years, and
Right.
And I wanted so badly to belong to this group, to have a home, that I took that on, and I told that story behind the podium every time I talked. And that day I woke up, I was like, oh my God. Oh my God.
Yeah.
I was drunk maybe like 5 times before I went into Insight.
Yeah.
Did I do a lot of drugs? Absolutely. I did a lot of drugs. Did I need help? Would I have probably killed myself? Probably. But it was definitely more trauma for me, but this absolute panic. But it's like, once you know the truth, you can't make it go away.
Right.
And I'm not going to lie, I did what I knew to do with it. I took it to a meeting.
Oh God. How did that go?
I'm going to be honest, really. Since I left Augusta and moved to Lexington, and there are a couple women who are great women who have some time sober, but had watched me come from like a stable over the years they have known me to crying in desperation in meetings. Like, it was not new to them, like something, and they
Something
looked
was
at
up.
it, right? So when I started talking, there really wasn't a lot of shock for them.
Right.
There was no judgment. There was no, you're going to die. There was like, they knew, I was coming from a place of complete vulnerability of like, oh my God, I really don't think I'm an alcoholic. And I sponsor these women and I've built my life on this. But I can't stay if I'm not an alcoholic. But there was an understanding, a patience, and like I said, 2 or 3 women just not shocked. I was 17.
Yeah.
I don't know how you figure it out at that age. There's people in AA who've been sober since they were 14, and it's their life, but it's like, let's look at this. Let's step back and look at it. Like, even for people I know who are graduated, who are still strong in belief of the program, and I don't know, I'm not telling them what they are, but for me, it was a safety net.
Yeah.
It was a delusion, a security that I could be a part of, that I could hang on to, that gave me safety. And sometimes you just can't let go of that safety. You just can't, and you never will. But for me, if you're getting sober between 14 to 17, something's going on at home and in your life. But that's just my personal experience. But around this time,
something's obviously going on if you're a 14-year-old who's using enough that someone feels like you need rehab. You definitely need something, but that's not you don't get what you need from enthusiastic sobriety programs.
Right.
That's for sure.
It'd be different if they were like, okay, do this some, but you also need to seek therapy. But that program does not do that.
Oh no.
But I did. I took it to a meeting, and that's the last meeting I went to.
Yeah.
And I even had people afterwards that just said, We love you. It doesn't matter why you're here. Just stay.
Oh God.
And I
Yeah,
thought,
no.
but what about me?
Yeah.
And then I heard, but you help so many women. Oh my God. Stop
Right.
telling me to fucking help people. When do I get
Right.
to help myself? Like, when do I
Right.
get to be true to myself?
Right.
No, I cannot stay. What do you want me to do? Talk about these meditations and get behind the podium and tell a lie?
Yeah.
Also, that I have a place of support and love? No.
Yeah.
So it wasn't easy,
No.
by any means, but I will say probably the support and reaction I got here in Lexington is by far better than anything I would have received in Augusta.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
For sure. Yeah, I remember I for me, I had just really started to I hated going to meetings. Like I fucking hated it. Like because I just wanted to live my life. Like I just wanted to go to work and go home at night and sit on the couch and eat and watch TV and go to bed. Like I just wanted, and I hated that it was like I got to figure out which meeting to go to and et cetera, et cetera. And so that was like my first indicator. And I let myself just go, I don't like doing this. And I didn't have to make it about like, it's probably my disease trying to kill me or whatever. And like, the meetings you need to go to, or when you don't want to go to a meeting, that
Mm-hmm.
kind of crap. And because it wasn't making me feel better anymore. Like I would be like, I don't want to go to a meeting. Okay, I should go to a meeting. I would go to a meeting and I'd be like, I don't feel better. I still don't. I wish I hadn't gone to that. Like
Yeah.
there's nothing, there's nothing about that made that any better. And then I went to this women's group and I started to have women pulling me aside after meetings and being like, you have just been like so okay and like you're always happy and what's going on, nobody is that happy all the time. And it was like, ew, like for the first time in my life I was why can't I be happy? And like isn't that a sign of success? Like
Mm-hmm.
what the fuck? Because I did not have I had problems, but I wasn't like, I got in a fight with my mom and I want to drink. Like, no, I would get in a fight with my mom and be like, well, that sucked. And I would call her the next day and apologize. And it didn't affect me, and people were upset with me about it. And that was another indicator like, well, that's weird. And then I called my sponsor and just said, I don't feel like I need to call you ever about anything. I don't have anything in my life that I feel like I need to call someone and ask for advice or direction or whatever. Like, I'm good. And she was like, okay. And I think she was like, well, you've been through the steps a bunch. Do you want to go through the traditions? And I was like, no, I really don't. Like, I really have no
It's like, why can't anyone in
desire.
AA just say, I don't have the answer to this.
Right,
I'm not really sure how to help. It's
right,
always
right,
like, well, we'll inventory this. Well, do you want to go
right,
through the
right,
traditions? Do you want to
right.
do it? And it's like, can you stop for 1 second? And instead
Yeah,
of just applying this protocol to me, can you hear me as an individual? Can you hear me as a person? And maybe consider,
yeah.
don't just apply these things without hearing me and listening to me. But I think that's hard for people,
I do
especially who have
too.
been inundated and
Especially, yeah,
who have gained so much from AA. Because I really did. Had I not been in AA, I would have not lived. I would have,
right.
not because I wanted to drink and would die, but because so much by that point had happened to me traumatically. Had I
Yeah.
not had an environment of love and support, which I did not have for my own family, I literally would not have made it. So I
Hmm.
credit it for that. But there's this lack of individuality. There's this application should work all the time. If it doesn't,
Right.
something's wrong with the way
Wrong
you're
with
doing
you.
it.
Yep. Yep.
And for me, it's like I still do have a couple really close people that I'm close with in AA, and some of them are old timers, and they're here
Hmm.
in the Lexington area, and they've been in the program, 20 plus years, and we still go to lunch and we still talk. And what's so nice about them is they listen to me as a person,
Yeah.
Now, do I
Yeah.
have like a ton of that? No, but I'm so fortunate that I've met those people and they're just listening to me as an individual without going, this is an alcoholic. I'm ready to supply them this, and this. And I tell you, for so long, I would sit down and talk with a person. I mean, literally from 17 to 39. And that everything out of my mouth would be analyzed, picked
Yes.
apart, determined to be healthy, unhealthy, fucked up, or not fucked up. I'm going to tell
Right.
you, by the age I was 39, I couldn't breathe.
Yeah.
I could not breathe inside of my soul because I didn't have one single person I could sit across from that wasn't going to judge and apply this litany of what's in the book, or into which inevitably I would feel like it was my fault. And, you know, it was love and acceptance was touted,
Yeah.
but no one ever just said, I'm so sorry you're hurting like that.
Yeah.
Can I do anything for you? It was
Mm-hmm.
like, well, if you're hurting, here's what you need to do. I mean, this happened to me for 22 years, and I
I
will
know.
never sit across from someone who is going to look at me and judge my thoughts, feelings, emotions, and behavior as healthy or unhealthy or right or wrong, because I'm a human. I'm a
Right.
human, and I've never really been allowed to be. But that's
Yeah.
probably the hardest part, is sustaining that for so long.
Yeah.
That you can't breathe. You can't even see yourself correctly anymore, and you can't remember the last time you did. And then you
Yeah.
wake up one day and you realize that you've spent 22 years somewhere that you're not supposed to be.
Yeah.
And you've been in a cult, and you watch the group documentary, and you see the manipulations, you see the
Mhm.
play on vulnerability, you see them pushing you down and pulling you up.
Yeah.
And then you've used that same tactic with
Yeah.
so many women,
Yeah.
but you didn't know. You didn't know it
Yeah.
was a tactic. You didn't know it was manipulation. You
Yeah.
thought you were really creating this genuine closeness. But what you did essentially was take advantage of them. And
Yeah.
you've spent years telling people, that's right, that's wrong, that's healthy, that's unhealthy, that's fucked up, that's not fucked up.
Mm-hmm.
That is really, really difficult.
Yeah, it is.
And you have to walk away from working with so many women in AA and tell
Mm-hmm.
your sponsees you're not an alcoholic. And all you care about is, God, I really hope I didn't damage them.
Yeah. I
Because
know.
now you know all of these tactics
Yeah.
are to create a codependence on
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
And that's really difficult
Yeah, it is.
because you don't want to hurt people that way. And here I am at 40 trying to figure out how to stand up for myself. And I just
Yeah.
hope that no woman that I ever worked with feels the need for someone to tell them what to do, how to behave, how to feel.
Mm-hmm.
That the biggest injustice I ever did was not tell them, let's learn how to trust yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Let's figure that out. Um, don't rely on me. Let's find a way that you can build yourself as a human being. I didn't do that. I created a dependence. And had I
Yeah.
known, I wouldn't have done it.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't look at the group, and I wouldn't look at what happened there until, I was about 39.
Yeah. How long ago was it that you stopped going to AA?
It wasn't long. We had COVID, and I have young children, and
Mm-hmm.
meetings were not meeting, and I was just not
Right.
big on Zoom. I'm very big on, like, God, you just get away with so much if you're just going to Zoom meetings.
Mm-hmm.
And then they kicked back up, and I had not gone to many, and I had a lot of personal stuff going on in my life. But the last meeting I probably went to was in April of 2021. So I have not.
Okay, so it has not been that long.
It hasn't,
Yeah.
and I'm very fortunate that several of the women I sponsor stay in touch with me. We're very close. We go to dinner. They did not have a massive problem with this.
Good.
I was not shunned by them.
Good.
Like I said, several people in Colombia stay in touch with me, care about me, help me, support me, love me.
Mm-hmm.
A couple people in Augusta, not near as many as I thought. But
Mm-hmm.
it's really hard if you're in AA to watch someone leave AA and really not be a drunk,
Right.
right? That
Right.
messes with your head
Yeah.
because that doesn't happen. No one
Right.
ends up in AA for 22 years by accident.
Right.
Well, they do.
Actually, yeah. We're both
Um,
living examples of that.
yeah. So, and you came around like you were popping up around the same time, and it was actually you that I talked to, and I hadn't talked to you since Macon. And it wasn't until then that I found out you were not in AA anymore.
Yeah.
And I was asking you questions, but more like hypotheticals
Right.
on the phone. I wasn't letting you know, like, hey,
Yeah.
I don't think, I did towards the end of the conversation, but in the beginning, I was just kind of asking, hypotheticals. And you had a completely different stance on the group than when we saw each other in Macon.
Yeah.
And again, as I did this EMDR and processed so many things, there were a couple things that made it this massive impact that you told me in the group that were very painful and I had never been able to shake. And
Mm-hmm.
I told you about them
Mm-hmm.
that day. And I didn't
Yeah.
tell you to blame you. I didn't
Yeah.
tell you to say you're a horrible person.
Yeah.
I
You made
was
that very clear.
I was meeting you where you were at because you had realized the truth of the group. And those specific things that you told me, they were told to you.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew that. So I wasn't saying it to say, I'm mad, you're awful, this, that. I was just saying it to say, like, hey, can I voice this?
Yeah.
Because this really hurt and
Yeah.
confused me.
Yeah.
And 22 years later, I still remember these statements very vividly.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to tell you what they are,
Yeah.
and I did. And I told you as well, like, I do not blame you. I
Yeah.
don't blame you because I didn't, because I realized the craziest thing about this group is the process. Like, again, you're a perpetrator, but you're also a victim.
Yeah.
You almost have it worse than us because you're under the gun of like the higher ups.
Right.
So I understood all of that.
I don't know that it's worse, but it is different.
Yes. And, we continued our conversation, but when we ended it, you said, I know you don't need it, but you did apologize in a very sincere and authentic way, in a way that I knew you had shame and regret.
Yeah.
I think I'm fortunate because so many people who were in the group will not get that in any capacity
Mm-hmm.
because their staff is still staff
Yeah.
and would never say it was wrong.
Yeah.
There are so many things that were said and done to so many members that there will be no justice, no understanding, no reparation, that I'm fortunate.
Yeah.
And I certainly didn't need the apology because I had already forgiven and let it go. But it did feel good and healing.
Good. It did for me too. Yeah. Any opportunity I get like that to like truly apologize to someone, because I swing back and forth. Like on one hand, I want to call like every single person
Right.
that I
Which would be
ever
impossible.
worked with and be like, I am so sorry, but at the same time, like, I don't want to take away, like, if they remember their experience with me in a positive way, I
Mm-hmm.
don't want to take that away either.
Right.
I don't want to call someone and be like, all that, because and I know people know this about me, but like, I really did fucking care about people. And I really thought I was doing a service. I really thought I was helping,
Mm-hmm.
um, so, and I think people know that about me, but then at the same time, there are days where I just want to crawl under the covers and not come out. I was having this conversation with my sponsor, Jesus Christ, my therapist.
Yeah.
um, and she's just so wonderful. And, we were talking about all this stuff, and I said, I just feel like I lost 20 years of my life.
Mm.
And she said, you did.
Yeah.
And it was like, thank you.
How
like,
unfortunate, right? Not only did we suffer trauma in our childhood, then we join this group. We date men that we do not like.
mm-hmm.
We sleep with men that we do not like.
I almost married a man I didn't like.
We play this role that we're told to play. We take on all these really intolerant, mean, superior views that I always knew in my gut, like, that's not right.
Mm-hmm.
Essentially living a life that isn't our own. Yeah, it sucks. It really, really sucks. And shoot, Jacqueline, you kept doing it because you were on staff. I went to MAA and did it for 17, 18 years because I just was not ready to look at the totality of all the trauma I had suffered. And I was running. If I could be the best in recovery, I can get so fucking far away from myself, I won't have to deal with it.
Yeah. How do you feel now? Like, do you feel like you can breathe more now?
I do.
Good.
And I also am fortunate that I put myself around people who are making space and who don't throw this solution every time I'm hurting. It's like, can you just shut up for a minute and let me talk? And while I'm talking, don't sit there and try to think of some solution to fix it. I think that is so problematic. Even in AA, of if you're feeling sad, get out of yourself by helping other people, like it very much was in the program. And it's like, y'all, pain is a natural part of life.
Mm-hmm.
And if every time someone comes to you in emotional pain and you try to fix it or eradicate it, then why don't you just fucking drink?
Right.
Because essentially, don't find a solution for them in that moment. Just hear them. Just say, I hear you. I'm so sorry you feel that way.
Yeah.
And I'm fortunate that it may not be a ton of people, but I am surrounded by those people today. And I talk about the group a lot. I talk about the panic attacks. I talk about the need to be told I'm okay. I talk about this weird, I'm home alone on a Friday, Saturday night. I need to be with a group of people. Ridiculous to think that at age 40, just fucking ridiculous. But I talk about it.
Yeah.
I process through these things. And honestly, I don't miss AA.
Yeah, same here.
I was always trying so hard to follow all these rules, and it was essentially to protect myself from seeing a lot of truth. I met some great people in AA, great people who will probably be a part of my life forever. I was loved a lot. The thing I hate the most today about my experience is the long-term effect of not being able to trust myself.
Yeah.
That's very, very difficult. And, as you continue on, you remember other things that were said to you in the group and other situations. And you're just like, what was happening?
I know.
But I'm not in this state of fight or flight because that's what's actually happening. Right? So when I was in the group, it was actually happening. It's like, watch out, might be your night under the spotlight.
Well, and have you heard fight, flight, freeze, or fawn? And then fawn is the other one. And I don't know, I want to do some research on it. I've heard it kind of anecdotally. I don't know if I've heard it from a research scientist or anything, but it makes so much sense because I was always in, that's your parasympathetic nervous system constantly being on guard, because you're in such a abusive, manipulative environment and you're constantly having to
well, you're having to survive.
Whatever. Yeah, right. But freeze or fawn, I think mine is very much fawn, which is where when you feel that kind of that fight or flight response instead of fight or flight, you you fawn over the person or you fawn over the situation. And that was so much of me because it was like, I remember like my main abuser, Renee, like she would just be fucking mean to me, like just horribly mean. But the way everyone talked about her was like, well, she's just very blunt and she's just very honest. But it's because she loves so, so much, like Renee just loved everybody and loved more than everybody. And so it was like my internal alarms are going
Mm-hmm.
off and I'm reacting to like, she's saying a lot of really mean shit to me right now, but I'm not allowed to really process that because she's supposed to be so like, this is loving.
Right.
And so I would fawn. And so it was like, oh, Renee is just amazing and she's changed my life. And I, I'll find myself still wanting to do that today. It's like, it's very similar to how uh, women who are raped will text their rapist the next
Yep.
day and be like, had a great time last night, before they really process what's happened to them.
Yeah, they
And
return to the abuser.
yeah, yeah. And that's exactly what I did, the whole time that Renee was, that person in my life. It was like, I thought that the problem was me and that I just wasn't allowing her love and I thought the solution was to love her more. Like that's what will fix this. The
Mm-hmm.
problem is I just don't I'm not able to be vulnerable enough around her and whatever. And it's like, well, no, because she was constantly attacking me. It was like every fucking move I made
Yeah.
was constantly criticized, so I really like that. Like, I don't know, um, how much of that is like, again, like based in scientific research,
Right.
but it makes a lot of sense to me,
Mm-hmm.
and the freeze, freeze is the other one. And that's another thing that I do, it's like, and I can feel it. It's like when something hits me and I go into that mode, it's like my insides freeze.
Mm-hmm.
Like on the outside, I'm like, robotically like but like internally I'm frozen,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm like a deer in headlights and I can't react. I can't like what's like properly communicate. I don't like the way you're talking to me right now.
Right, because we're
you
used to
know
being talked to that way
yep
for so
yep
long.
yep and it
It's been
triggers that response.
it's been acceptable to us
Yep.
that now it's like it's a trigger when it happens, but we haven't quite yet figured out
Yeah.
how do I stand up for myself, because every time I have in the past, I've gotten more battered, right?
Right.
Like
Right.
the verbal assault has gotten worse.
Right, or it's coming out of love.
Mm-hmm. So it's
Because that
real
person
tricky.
loves you. Yeah. Yeah.
And today I have the similar bodily reactions of fight or flight. And when it starts to happen and I feel that like racing heart or the panicky, the crazy, like all of my friends are going to leave me, also created in the group.
Yes. Yes.
Because if a counselor thought you were fucked up, they told everybody else, then everyone else thought you were fucked up, and you never knew what day that was going to be.
Yeah.
So like your whole community was never really secure. So
Yep.
when that kind of stuff happens today, I have to walk myself through it.
Yeah.
I have to say, like, no one's pulling you to the bottom of the river to yank you up to the top to breathe for 5 minutes and push you back down. Like, you're not there anymore.
Yeah.
Your body may think you are at times, but you're not. And I
Yeah.
have to walk myself, through those things. Like, hey, this is real life. Nobody just ups and leaves their friend.
Right.
Like,
Right.
it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
And I have to walk through, all of those things.
Yeah. Yeah. I still get so like, if I text someone and they don't text me back like immediately, I'm like, they hate me. Like like I instantly start thinking like, what did I do? What did I say? Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. And then they're like, oh, sorry, I was in the bathroom. And I'm like, oh, thank God. I still very much like, that's like the one thing, well, not the one, but that's one of the main things that like still hangs on, from that time period where, people would pointedly not reply to
Mhm.
a phone call or,
It's paranoia. They set up
yes,
complete
like,
paranoia.
absolutely. Yep. And then
Like,
it would
how
be
is
like,
that
well,
helpful for
because you
recovery?
said this thing 3 days ago and, you know,
Which is really coming from this sick place. I mean,
right,
just
right.
the amount of psychological confusion you go through
It's psychological abuse.
is
Like,
just ridiculous.
yeah, it's abuse.
And
It's
thank God to
awful.
all those people who stayed on the outskirts of the group and never wanted to be on steering. And we had some of those in Augusta that didn't get kicked out because we wouldn't have had a group.
Listen, Stephen and Sherm
Yeah.
were the best thing that happened to that group,
Like,
hands
I
down.
look at those people now and I'm like,
Hands
you
down.
guys were so damn smart.
I know.
You
I
were so
know.
smart.
I know.
Good for you.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
I look at Walter, who never put anything in, who was just like this like complete dick. And I'm like, man, good for you.
Yep.
Good for you, because now you're not all tangled and twisted and confused. And I just look at those people and I'm like, yeah, you were smart.
Yep. Yeah, there were definitely people who were unaffected.
Yes. And now they don't even keep those people in the group. Now they'll kick them out.
Yeah.
But they couldn't at the time, or Augusta wouldn't have existed.
Yeah,
So they had to
there
keep like everybody.
there would have been 3 people. Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. So smart ones.
So, I know you have a lot of, like, you have some stuff going on right now that's
Yeah.
pretty, like, rough.
Yeah.
Um, but I think, like, so what would you, because we've covered a lot. This has been
We
an
have. There's no way
amazing
it can all
conversation.
go on like a pot. It's so much.
Oh, no, this is all going on.
It's a lot. I'm like, who is going to listen? You're going to have to break it up. They're going to get tired of our back and forth.
Oh, no, they listen. They will listen. No, this has been amazing. Well, and this is the first, well, I guess technically it's the second, but this is the first interview I've done where it's just the two of us.
Oh.
And it's someone who I was like very, very close to,
Mm-hmm.
and that like I had an effect on as a staff member, but there was like more to it than that for sure,
Mm-hmm.
Um, so this has just been incredible for me. Like it's been heavy as fuck, and I think I'll probably be processing it for the next
Mm-hmm.
week, but it's great. It's really great, and I really enjoyed it, and I think it's we talked about some really important stuff. Um, is there anything else like that you would want to say? Because I think, I think one of the hardest things for people is, what you and I both did, which is looking at like, am I even an alcoholic? I think
Mm-hmm.
I know that's so difficult for people.
Mm.
And I think it was important for us to talk about this and talk about both of our experience with it. Is there anything else you would want to say to people who are questioning that or are kind of like in the midst of it right now?
I mean, I'll say this for my experience. I didn't take a drink to figure it out.
Yeah,
I actually
same
left.
here.
I actually left AA, and when I left, I didn't just go take a drink to see. In
Yeah,
fact, drinking wasn't even on my mind.
yeah,
Uh, if it had been about wanting to take a drink, it would have been a lot easier
yeah,
because I
yeah,
was walking away from a life I'd lived for 2 decades.
yeah,
Um, did I drink eventually a couple weeks, prior? Yeah, but it wasn't about drinking for me. It wasn't. You'll know. And I
yeah.
will say, I had this conversation with my sponsor many times.
Mhm.
I'm not sure if I'm alcoholic. And it was, oh, you're definitely an alcoholic.
Right.
Well, your disease tells you don't have a disease.
Right,
Well,
right,
I know how your mind works. You're definitely an alcoholic. And let me tell you something. The way my mind works doesn't make me an alcoholic. Like the things that are
right.
covered in AA about fear, insecurity, self-centeredness, all of that actually happens to every human being.
Yes.
It's not unique to us
Yeah.
so it was always planted. It was a journey until I could hear the truth.
Yeah.
And if you can't hear the truth, then you keep moving forward how you're moving forward.
Yeah.
For anyone who still struggles with triggers and the body keeps the score and the mind from the group, I always love to be of service and listen and hear you and validate you, and not so much over text or social media. That's just kind of not me. I will say, I think the reason why Jacqueline and I could communicate and heal each other is because by the time I talked to Jacqueline about the things that had really hurt me, I wasn't angry. I
Mm-hmm.
had worked with a therapist. I had talked about these things. I had done the work. And I
Mm-hmm.
think if I had approached Jacqueline as this villain and this perpetrator with this anger of, I need you to make me feel better,
Yeah.
that situation would have gone very, very different.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't think any of our perpetrators, no matter how much they apologize, can make us feel better.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a really good point.
And I want
Yeah.
to,
I didn't. Oh, go ahead.
I want to be available to people who want to talk about that, who want to talk about the long-term effects, who want to commiserate on what that feels like, and also find a way out.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure.
And I don't care if you're an alcoholic or not. Great, be an
Yeah.
alcoholic. If you're an alcoholic, you're an alcoholic. Makes no difference to me.
Yeah.
If you're not and you've spent a lot of years in AA, I am so sorry.
Yeah.
Because when and if you figure it out, it is going to hurt like hell.
Yeah. It's rough. And I did the same thing. That was after I talked to my therapist. I went into her office and was like, I don't think I'm an alcoholic. And I was so scared. I was so scared to say it out loud. And she was like, oh, thank God, finally,
My
like
therapist said the same damn
yeah.
thing.
And I went back and forth. I was like, I don't feel like I need to do anything with this right now. I'm not going to keep going to AA meetings. I think I had already talked to my sponsor at that point
Mm-hmm.
and told her like, I'm not going to call you anymore. Um, but I was like, I don't know if I'm going to drink or not. Like that
Right.
terrifies
Yeah, it wasn't what's
me.
on my mind about it.
Yeah. And well, it was on my mind. It wasn't my
Mhm.
goal, but it
Right.
was on my mind because I was, I'm with you. I was it was 2015. So I was 35. No, I was 38, 39.
Mhm.
Um, and and I remember her being like, okay, you can do whatever you want. You can drink what if you want. You don't have to drink if you don't want to. Like, I don't, she was like, you're not someone who's not going to figure this out, basically, is what she said. And I remember I was like driving home from work and it just hit me like, oh, I don't have to drink to know I'm not an alcoholic.
Mm-mm, you don't.
And I was like, "Oh," and that was it. That was it. That was the last time I even thought about it. Or
Yep.
not thought about it, but it was the last time I questioned,
Mhm.
and then it's same thing, like, I had a glass of Chardonnay, like, about a month later, and it was fine. And then I mean, now I guess I would consider myself a social drinker. I don't really drink that much,
Right.
um because I finally have, medication for my mental illness, and you're not really supposed to drink with it. So,
Smart, smart.
right, right. So I don't, I'll have a glass of wine here and there, but I don't really like
Mhm.
alcohol that much. Um,
Well, yeah, shoot, if you've never really had it in your body, which I didn't really even have it in my body before I was 17,
right.
it feels like this is a foreign substance in my body. It doesn't
Sure.
feel that great. I'm
Yeah.
not at age 40 when they're like, "Oh, beer's an acquired taste." Hey, guess what? I'm fucking 40. I'm not going to be acquiring a
It's
taste for
not,
anything.
it's not going to acquire.
Right. I don't want to drink beer that bad to
Yeah.
acquire a taste.
Yes. Yes.
Um,
Absolutely.
you absolutely don't have to take a drink to figure out and know you're not an alcoholic. I was a
Yeah.
child.
Yeah.
I was a child and then inundated with a program who assured me I was absolutely addict and alcoholic and I was absolutely going to die.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yep. Yep. For
And I
sure.
didn't have anywhere to go.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I believed everything they told me because
Yep.
they were the first people who didn't say leave.
Yep.
And that's their whole game.
Yep. Absolutely it is. Yep. Well, we've been talking for probably 2.5 hours
Yeah, long
now.
time. Long time.
Well, this has been incredible. I'm so glad we did this. I'm so glad we did this. So I think we've discussed everything we could possibly discuss at this
Yes.
point. Um, do you want to tell people, if people do want to reach out to you, do you want to tell people where they can find you and how to reach out to you?
I mean, I'm both on, Facebook and Instagram. I'm a member of some of the groups. I am under Susanna Eller. I'm pretty easy to find. Um, you can always reach out to me that way.
Okay.
Um, I work a lot. I've been doing mental health for a very, very, very long time, and I may not have solutions, but I can definitely accept you, validate you, and hear you, which a lot of us didn't get. And even now, when we talk about it, a lot of people want to write it off and not believe it. But I'm
Yeah.
here to
Yeah.
believe you.
Yeah. I can't even tell you how relieving it was when I realized I did not have to give people solutions. It was like I will never forget it because this woman who I was friends with from AA, she was like my best friend. And she called me because she had broken up with this guy and she was like, I want him back. And he'd been a total dick to her.
Uh huh.
And I knew what she was looking for was for me to be like, you should get back together with him. And I was just like, okay.
hmm
I mean, if you want him back, then get him back. I don't know. Like, what do you want to
Yeah,
do? And
like you got to figure that out. It's your life.
yeah. And it's not my job to
Mm-mm.
tell anybody what to do with their life. Like for real. Like we would say that in the program,
But you
but
guys told us all the damn time.
right, right. Like there's some part in the big book where it's like, who am I to give other people advice? And I would say that, but like I would still do that all the time. Like it was like, well, but this is God speaking through me. So it's not me giving the advice. It's God,
Right.
whatever. Jesus Christ. It's such a nightmare. But yeah, and that was really the last time I've ever, like my husband and I will talk and he'll be like, what do you think I should do with this work situation? And that's one thing. But like when my friends are like, I have a friend right now who's going through a divorce and I don't, unless she's like, what do you think I should do here?
Mm-hmm.
I I don't most of what I say is I'm sorry and I love you and I wish I could give you a hug.
Yeah.
And that's it. And it's so freeing to
Mm-hmm.
not feel like I have to get into people's shit with them or give them a solution or nothing. I don't have to do anything. I mean, to begin with, I don't have to answer the phone. That's the
Yes.
first place. A good start is like I can turn my phone off at night and I don't have to answer the phone when someone calls, even if I know they're going through something,
Mm-hmm.
because I do not have to do that for people. I do not have to be that for people. And I love it. I love it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, anyway, so this has been amazing. You can find Susanna on Facebook and Instagram. Maybe I'll link your social media in the show
Okay. You can
notes.
do that.
Um,
Really fun.
Thank you so much for doing this. And I'm so glad we still know each other.
Me too. What a crazy journey.
Seriously. Well, we will surely talk again soon.
Yes, we will.
Okay. We're going
All
to go
right.
now.
Okay.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.
So thank you, Susanna. That was just an awesome episode. I really, really enjoyed it. I hope you all enjoyed it too. I will link all of Sue's social media information in the episode notes. So if you tap on the episode in whatever podcast app you're in, under the description, there will be links to her social media. So I will see all of you next Saturday live on Twitch with Mike Harper. And then I have some amazing episodes lined up for you in the coming months. Specifically, I posted this on social media that we have Daniel Kolitz, who was the journalist for who wrote the Love Bomb for the Atavist magazine, that got into some of the history of the programs and Bob and some of the darker sides of what was going on behind the scenes. So he and I did like a part 1 because Daniel and I could talk for hours and hours and we had to go. So we will be doing another one. I'm going to have some really great professionals in the therapy world come on and talk about their experience with, adolescents and young people and just kind of the whole world and, what treatment is supposed to look like for, young people who are struggling. Because, I don't, do any of us know? Who knows? So that's going to be pretty cool. And I just got some really great guests lined up, and I don't want to give it all away, but just so you know, it's going to be awesome. And I have not forgotten about my interview with anti-MLM girl, Corey. That one will still be coming out. I just wanted to get Sue's out, pretty quickly because it was another enthusiastic survivor story and it was really good. So thank you all so much for listening. We really appreciate all of your support and hope that, this podcast is still helping people. Go check out our Black Friday sale on our Redbubble shop. It's in the link in the bio in all of our socials. And send me an email at ontheemmispod@gmail.com if you would like to be on the podcast. There's also a place to submit your story on in the Linktree that's in our social media. And I hope you had a great Thanksgiving and see you next Saturday. Bye.